Time for episode 59 of the Press Box Podcast. And in this episode, we're going to recap NFL Week 9, which just concluded last night. We'll give you a little bit of a preview into Week 10, which has some very interesting matchups. And we'll finally, before we sign off, touch on our fantasy football season. Some interesting happenings there. We got one team still in it, one team out of it, as far as we're concerned. And then we'll wrap up with the big college football game of last weekend, Notre Dame and Clemson, and what that means for the rest of the season going forward. And before we get started, as we always say, follow us on Twitter if you're not already, at PressBoxPod. We like interacting with you guys there, and you'll get all the latest tweets and links to our episodes. You can go listen on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. But, as we always say, without further ado, let's get into episode 59 of the Press Box Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. This is episode 59, if you're counting at home, the Jack Ham episode of the Press Box Podcast. Jack Ham, great Hall of Fame linebacker with the Pittsburgh Steelers, war number 59. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, and our producer, Nathan Miranda, here in just a few minutes. Today we're going to talk the NFL Week 9. Sunday and Week 9 concluded last night with the New England Patriots playing the New York Jets. So we're going to kind of look at the NFL Week 9 results and kind of give you our input on where we think the NFL is headed and where some of these teams are headed. So, Joseph, I'll kind of throw it to you to start with. What was the one thing that stood out the most to you in Week 9?
Well, I think it's the thing that stood out to most everybody is the Buccaneers' performance on Sunday night.
Yes.
Their dreadful performance.
Yes.
Against the Saints. I think we talked about in this podcast that they played in Week 1, and I think we both felt like the Buccaneers could and probably would beat them this time, and we kind of contributed to Week 1 to first game with Brady and the whole new deal down there in Tampa, but they looked terrible. And now, with that win, the Saints basically take control of the division, having beat the Buccaneers twice, and you kind of have to start to question everything we've talked about. Brady MVP, that's kind of going out the window now.
Right.
He's taking a step back from winning that. The Buccaneers being the favorites in the NFC, well, if you come out and look like that, it kind of puts a damper on everything. So I think that's the biggest thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree with that. The Saints obviously now in the driver's seat with the schedule, with the division race. If you look at the Saints' schedule, they would play this coming Sunday. They're going to play San Francisco.
I think that's a win based
at
on
home, right?
On San Francisco's.
Then they play Atlanta at home, which is probably going to be a win.
Mm-hmm.
They're at Denver, which you have to favor them in that game. Then they play the Falcons again, and then they play the Eagles, and then they play the Chiefs, which will be tough.
Yeah.
And then they close with the Vikings and the Panthers. So you got to favor the Saints looking at that schedule right now. There's just
a possible 12-4 there.
Obviously, and I was a little bit shocked too. I thought we were going to end up watching a really good football game, and gosh, it was 31-0 at halftime. And Tom Brady, it seems like the Saints just seem to have his number. He just does not play very well against them, and I think a little bit of that is you can take the quarterback out of New England, but you can't take New England out of the quarterback. What I mean by that is, I think Brady is still trying to get the Buccaneer players to play at a level where the Patriots played when he was the quarterback. And I don't think they're quite there yet. I think there's still too much I'm going to get mine type thing as opposed to, hey, we're all just going to do our job for the good of the team. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's going to take a while for that to kind of,
And Antonio Brown played Sunday night, which, I don't know. He obviously didn't contribute to getting beat that bad, but the signing was so unnecessary. Why do you need to bring him in?
Right.
I know Godwin had a finger injury, but you've got Godwin, you got Evans. you were 6-2 heading in. Like you had things kind of rolling. Like why even bother with that? Like it's not going to make him that much better.
Right.
It's not going to hurt him though, probably. Well, he could hurt him in the locker room.
Oh yeah, that type of thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you know, I don't know. I mean, I could see if you're 4-4 and you don't really have a go-to receiver where he could put you over the top, but you have receivers. You're 6-2.
Right.
Just let it go. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to admit that there was a little bit of Brady behind that decision. You know,
He liked him in New England too.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Brady kind of likes him.
Well, there was a report that he was living with Brady.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, temporarily, because he's in Tampa.
Yeah. Let's hope temporarily. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I agree with all that, and I think the Buccaneers right now have to be looking at one of the wild card positions, which, barring a falling apart of their team, I think they'll
still get in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they'll definitely get in the playoffs.
What about the Bills? I mean, I guess it's time to start taking them seriously. They're 7-2. They beat Seattle.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. Look, nobody's in the stadiums. There's no home field advantage in terms of the crowd, and I never really bought the whole thing that people say, like, oh, the Seahawks come from the West Coast. It's playing at 10 a.m. on their time. Well, if you're getting ready to play an NFL football game, you're awake, you're ready to play football, all right? So, you know, they might be better than the Seahawks. I don't know. I mean, I still don't trust Josh Allen. I still think, look, the Bills are obviously going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to win the division the way it looks now, but they're just not a factor. I still don't buy them.
Yeah, you know, I agree with the second part of your argument. I think there's a little more to Josh Allen maybe than you're willing to give him credit for. I don't think he's quite taken the step to being a franchise quarterback, but I think he's a lot better than those other quarterbacks that came out in that draft class. You know, I mean, when you look at
Darnold, Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean Darnold and Mayfield. I mean, I think he was a good pick for Buffalo, and I really think that if he can clean up some of his mistakes, which is not protecting the ball when he runs, not taking big hits when you run. You know, it's one thing to take big hits when you're 23. We've talked about this with Lamar Jackson. But when you start getting to be 27, 28, 29, and you've taken these hits for 5 or 6 years, it's going to start affecting you. So I think some of those things he's got to clean up. But, hey, you can't argue with success. I mean, last year they made the playoffs. This year it looks like they're going to win the division, albeit the Patriots are having a down year. But they did beat the Patriots. So I think the Bills, I think we have to start taking them for real. How far they're going to go in the playoffs, who knows? You know, they may be one and done.
What's your definition of taking them for real, though?
That's a good question. Like
good point.
That's a good point. I guess I meant I see them as more of a one and done team in the playoffs.
Okay,
like,
right. Yeah.
I'm taking them for real.
So
For the fact that
to you, that means not taking them for real. See what I'm saying? Like,
not taking it for real for me means that you don't have a chance to get to the Super Bowl.
Okay. So if they won the division and lost their first playoff games, that for you is what you expected. They're not for real.
Right.
Okay.
And I would agree with that. I don't think they have a chance to get to the Super Bowl this year. But you have to admit that they drafted Josh Allen, 2018, right? Okay. This is his third year. Yeah. He will have taken them to the playoffs 2 years. And if they win, even if they win just one playoff game this year, he's been improving every year. The team has been improving every year. So I think you have to say, hey, that's a success for the Buffalo Bills. Would you not agree with that?
I agree, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, when I hear, like, this team's for real, I think continue to win the division, continue to make the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah. In which case, I think the Bills are for real.
Right.
But if you're talking about Super Bowl contender, then yeah, they're probably not for real, but...
Well,
how many teams are really for real then? Like 3?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, let's remember this too. I mean, I don't care what anybody tells me. Winning the Super Bowl is a crapshoot. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can be look at the Ravens last year. Everybody thought they were by far the best team in the league, and they got beat. My point is, and then look at the Giants. They won 2 Super Bowls coming out of nowhere. Everything just seemed to click for them, right? So I think winning a Super Bowl, everything has to fall into place. So to me, a successful franchise is a franchise that can make the playoffs almost every year and be in contention every year. That's a successful franchise.
And I guess I should kind of... It also, for me, depends on who you're asking about. So if you ask me, hey, do you think the Packers are for real? Do you think the Chiefs are for real? Do you think the Steelers are for real? I take it to mean, do you think they can win the Super Bowl?
Right.
If you say, hey, you think the Dolphins are for real this year? Well, that to me is like, can they make the playoffs? Can they win the division? Because obviously they're not going to win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess the Bills would fall in that category then.
So they are for real for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. You know what I mean? So, Yeah, I guess I don't know. That makes sense.
So in order for a team to jump into that top tier of Packers, Chiefs, Steelers, you have to do what? Make the playoffs consecutive years in a row,
And then you have to go deep in win consecutive years in a row and win some playoff games, right? Because Jacksonville got to the AFC Championship that one year. Well, that didn't make them for real. And had the next year, had they got the divisional round, then the year after that they make the playoffs, then you start to think.
Then they move into that different definition.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
It's kind of murky.
Are the Ravens for real? First of all, are they in that top tier for you?
I think they're in the top tier.
Okay, and so you're saying they're not Super Bowl contenders.
Right.
So they're not for real.
Yeah. That's kind of, I don't know.
Interesting. I think another surprising game for me, well, two games that were pretty surprising for me this weekend were, excuse me, one of them was the Steelers at the Cowboys. I think that game, the Cowboys were ahead late in that game and seemed to be playing probably better than they'd played all year, and then they ended up losing the game. And I kind of look at that as a watershed game for the Cowboys. I think that was a game that had they won, they might have been able to turn their season around and maybe compete with the Eagles for the division. But I think now the Cowboys are cooked. I mean, they've got basically their fourth quarterback in there, Garrett Gilbert. Yeah. The guy couldn't have even been on the roster 3 weeks ago because you had Dak Prescott, you had Andy Dalton as your backup, and you had Ben DiNucci as your third string. So I don't know where they got Gilbert from. He must have been on the practice squad. My point is, I think the Cowboys are done. But they did surprise me with the effort that they put forth against the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody expected a big win for the Steelers. I think they're favored by 14.
Yes.
Let me also say, classic uniform matchup.
Yes.
Seeing that on the screen, just the Steelers black and yellow versus the Cowboys uniform, it's classic NFL. Super Bowl 13, 13.
Super Bowl 10.
Super Bowl 30.
Super Bowl 10.
Super Bowl 10.
Had the shadows, and it was in Dallas with the shadows on the field.
Classic NFL. There's not too many matchups that look like that.
No, but 49ers Packers is one.
Yes.
I mean, not like Super Bowl matchups, but just classic NFL.
I think we're all in agreement the Steelers aren't going undefeated. Is that correct?
No.
I don't see that.
They're not. No.
So I think they're a shakier 8-0. They're not like in years past the Patriots 8-0, or even if the Chiefs were 8-0, you'd be like, they're so powerful, maybe they could. But I still think they can get to the Super Bowl. But they'll probably end up 14-2.
Big Ben seems like somebody to me that any moment he could limp off the field or do something. Or I
thought you were gonna say throw a pick. But if he gets hurt, they're in deep trouble.
Well, I was gonna say a lot of teams, even if they're good teams, the Chiefs, if Mahomes gets hurt, they're in trouble. I'm just saying it seems like he's more injury prone than most Big Ben. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I did read today that he was put on the coronavirus reserve list, but they expect him to be ready for Sunday, and not because he has the coronavirus, but because he was considered to be a close contact to somebody who did get it. But anyway, you're right. He's 38 years old.
And he's older, that's
right,
it, which
right.
would make you more injury prone.
Correct.
So you got to be careful with him.
Correct.
Let me ask you this, since go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but I didn't watch a lot of that game. The Cowboys perform really well, or the Steelers just kind of mess around and
the Cowboys played above their.
They did.
I guess their standard they've set for themselves this year based on their expectations. Okay. But yeah.
Okay, what are you gonna say?
Let me ask you about the Giants because they beat the football team this past week.
They did beat the football team. Yes, they did.
Kind of that old question when anybody's a fan of any team, do you want them to lose games and get a high pick if their season's not really going to go anywhere? Or do you want to win as many as you can? Because some would argue that they're hurting themselves. Now they're 2-7. Okay, well they're not going to make the playoffs, but they might end up in that weird 11th or 12th pick or 8th, instead of the top 3. So how do you feel about their season? I guess technically they're still in the division race.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they still have to play the Eagles and the Cowboys again. So if they win those games, you could argue that they're in the driver's seat for the division. But I guess if the Giants feel like they have their franchise quarterback in Daniel Jones, then they don't really need the first pick in the draft, right? Okay. Except if you wanted to get it and trade it for other draft capital. But right now, as I said, I think I said this Sunday afternoon when we were watching the games, is that, right now the Giants still have to play the Bengals, and they still have to play the Eagles or the Cowboys. I see the Giants winning maybe a couple more games. So if they go 4-12, that's going to put them probably, 8th, 9th, 10th pick in the draft, which maybe not that high, maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah, right.
But still, you're not going to get what I would consider a tradable person. Now, if you want to trade, if somebody picking at 23 or 24 wants to get closer to the top of the draft, maybe so. But I guess I don't buy into tanking. I never have bought
I
into
don't like
tanking.
the word either.
Yeah, I don't like it. So I think the Giants, I will say this about the Giants. As much as I'm hard on them, very hard on them, they're playing well. I mean, they're playing hard. They haven't given up. And I think that's a testament to their coach and their staff. Granted, the only 2 wins they have against the football team, which is probably, not exactly stellar wins, but they did take the Eagles down to the last minute. They took the Buccaneers down to the last minute. They took the Cowboys down to the last minute. I think if they can get over that youthful hump of learning how to win those games, I think the Giants can become a pretty good football team, especially when they get Saquon Barkley back next year. But to answer your question, no, I don't believe in tanking. I think you try to win every game.
I have a couple of things. First off, if you have to resort to saying that a professional football team is at least playing hard and not giving up, that's like the definition of a moral victory. I mean,
yeah, I agree with that.
Maybe for a high school team, if they're playing their hearts out, they haven't given up in the season. These guys are professionals. You expect them to play hard every week. So
you do, but the Giants didn't do that the last couple seasons. All right.
Okay, my point is, it's not a victory that they've done that. It's okay. Now they're just back to what you expect. Now they have to do something else that make you feel good about them.
All right, but let me ask it this way to you.
It's like saying a plumber comes over and doesn't fix the leak. Well, if you're like, well, he's fixing leaks. He's not that good, but at least he's fixing it. Well, that's what you pay him to do. It's like he needs to actually do it well. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a good example. My point is, that's just like the meat. That's just the what you just asked for is to play hard. That's like the lowest thing you can ask for. So if they're doing that, even if they had done in the past, it's not a positive. It's just they're back to where they should be.
Well, yeah, no, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I guess my point is that the NFL is kind of a different animal. I mean, if you don't buy into your coaching staff and you don't buy into what's going on, you still have to play hard because you don't want to get hurt. But I don't think there's that desire there to prepare properly. There's not that desire there to give that extra mile. So when you get in a game, you're still trying, but you're not fully prepared, and when things get tough, you just kind of have already packed it in mentally. Do you know what I mean? And I know that's not a good thing to say, but I think that's been exhibited by the Giants the last couple of years and by other teams as well. Does that make any sense?
I'm just saying. I know what you mean with your analysis. I'm just saying, if that's what you have to point to say that at least they're not giving up. At least they're preparing. It's like they're professional athletes. I don't know.
I think we know. I mean, they're 2-7. They're not having a great season. So I guess what you're trying to say is
they're paying them to do this, though.
I know. Yeah, I don't know.
I know what you mean. It's easy to fall into that, maybe, but
do you buy into the fact that a young do you like the phrase that a young team has to quote unquote learn how to win, or do you think that's a bogus phrase?
I don't think that's a bogus phrase, but I think that's not what we're talking about.
Well, I think it is because I think this year's Giants at 2-7 is different than last year's Giants at 2-7. If that makes any difference, you know what I mean. I mean, Bill Parcells says you are what your record says you are, and I understand that. But I think this year's team, you can tell they've had multiple opportunities to win those games. They could easily be 5-4.
Okay, maybe they're better.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're not better. I'm just saying if last year's team didn't prepare hard and they didn't really care about the season anymore, and this year's team does, I wouldn't be like, bravo, 2020 Giants. I'd just be like, okay, now you're doing what you're expected to do. Now let's do something else.
Yeah,
like, this is what we're paying you to do.
I agree with that.
Anyways, my second point was, I don't think any of us agree with tanking. Like, I think maybe Joseph, I don't know if this is what you're trying to ask, but what I'd be interested in hearing from you is, since you're a Giants fan, not if you were the owner or the coach, would you tank? You said you wouldn't tank. You try to win games. But as a fan, would you, at the end of the year, would you be happier seeing...
Right, I guess that's what I was trying to
Would you be happier seeing them not win another game, going 2-14, but having maybe the first pick in the draft? Or would you be happier having them maybe win the division and then get killed in the playoffs, or maybe fight for the division, but not quite make it?
That's what I meant as a fan, you having no control over
having no control. Yeah. Obviously, if you have control, you want to win.
Okay, maybe I didn't understand your question, and I apologize. Yeah. But as a fan, I would rather them go 2-14. I'd rather see them go 2-14.
They get the first pick.
No, without
if you know the season's not going.
Yes, I mean right now the Giants are 2-7 right now, and I know in my heart that they're not going to make the playoffs. And even if they were to somehow sneak up and win that bad division, they're going to get killed in the playoffs. That's my point. So yeah, as a fan, I'm thinking go ahead and lose. You see what I mean? But if they were 5-4 right now, I would think just the opposite.
Right.
Yeah. But as a fan, you're right.
You wouldn't have any. You wouldn't have any extra joy just to be like, well, they were 2-7 last year. Now they won 5 games, so they're better. You know.
No, not at all. Yeah. Let me say this before we go on to the next. We talked about the Steelers. You said the Steelers are not going to go undefeated. I said no, but let's look at their schedule real quick. Next game, next week, they play the Bengals. That's a very winnable game.
It's also winnable for the Bengals, I think. I can see them win.
Yeah, I could too.
But Where's it at?
The game is at it's at Heinz Field. All right, home.
Okay.
They play Jacksonville in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's a win.
All right.
That's a win.
They play the Ravens at Heinz Field.
That's the Thanksgiving night game. That'll be good.
Yeah, that'll be a good game. That's a possible lost football game.
Yeah.
They play the football team at Heinz Field.
It's a win.
They play the Bills at Buffalo.
That could go either way.
Possible could go either way. They play the Bengals then at Cincinnati.
I think for some reason I think they can get those games go
Okay,
either way.
all right. And then they play the Colts at home, which
That could
again
go
could go either way.
You got like 5 games that go either way.
And then they close out with the Browns in Cleveland. So
That's a win.
Wait
Yeah.
a second. Any game could go any way, but you're looking at it from these Bengals games. They're going to be favored by at least a touchdown. Like they're expected to beat the Bengals.
Just the Steelers and Jaguars game cannot go any way.
I know.
Steelers
but I guess we're looking at it more of you'd think like they're going to be favored to beat the Bengals by probably at least a touchdown. Like they're expected to win that game.
You're saying they're expected to win all these
Right.
games.
So of the games went over, obviously the Ravens, the Colts, and the Bills are the 3 that
You think there's 3 that may not be favored in those games? They may be
they'd be favored against the Colts even, but the Colts are they're 5-3.
Okay,
they're
so
a good team.
there's 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that
They may
out
not
there.
be favored in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Okay, I see your
good
point.
point.
I see your point.
All right, and the other game that surprised me this week was the last night's game. I mean, the Monday
Right,
night game.
yeah.
I fully expected the Patriots to just hammer the Jets, but the Jets should have won that game.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jets were up 20-10 at halftime.
Joe Flacco.
I know
That's why they're up 20-0 at halftime.
Flacco's better than Darnold. I mean,
Yeah, there's no question he's better than Sam Darnold, but still, the Jets taking the Patriots to the wire is not something that we've seen since the Rex Ryan era.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you need to go in, they're not the Patriots of old, but I still expected them to win by 10 or more points.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was surprising. Like, you pointed this out last night during the game. Like, I forget the word you used. The Patriots have a bunch of nobodies out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nondescript players, but now they don't have Brady to make up for that.
Right.
And you have 1 or 2 guys out, like Edelman or somebody like that, and then you're just another team with a great head coach. But he can't do anything if he doesn't have talent.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of where we are with the Patriots.
I mean, I think we're seeing that the Patriots, Tom Brady may have been the difference in that football team, because I think I mentioned this last night too. Cam Newton missed a 3rd down throw that Tom Brady would not have missed. The wide receiver was wide open, and that's not something that Tom Brady's going to miss in that situation, no matter how bad he's playing. So, I think the Patriots, of course, Belichick, like we talked about in our mid-season recap, Belichick making the excuse of the salary cap. I know there's a salary cap, and I know that they sold out to win Super Bowls and all that crap. But come on, you are what you are. You're 3-5 now. You just don't have a good football team. You don't have a quarterback, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I would like to hear your opinion on. Speaking of Cam Newton's performance, did you see LeBron James tweet?
No, I did
after
not.
the game?
No.
LeBron James tweets, quote, "Hell of a game at Cameron Newton. Big time all night long. Game-winning drive to add on to it." End quote. Yeah. Thoughts?
Well,
no thoughts.
Big time all night long.
No thoughts.
Well, first of all, my opinion on that is, if I want to get football analysis or information, I'm definitely not going to go to LeBron James. And second of all, I'm probably not going to go to LeBron James for any kind of analysis. Let alone football. So
he can.
That's his opinion.
He tweeted it once.
Sure.
I just thought it was.
And Cam Newton played better than he's played the last few games.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. But the Patriots he's become a game manager.
My first thought. First of all, I didn't watch the game, so I'm not sure what Cam Newton did. but I knew they won with a last second field goal when I first saw that tweet. So my first thought was, the Patriots had to win had to kick a last second field goal to beat the Jets.
Yes.
I don't think I'd be praising anybody on the Patriots team.
Right.
If that happened.
Right.
I mean,
when was the last time the Patriots had to kick a last second field goal to beat the Jets?
And
Long time ago.
And not only any Jets team, this Jets team, which is probably the worst Jets team in the past 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems strange to be like, to be saying something, not even like Cam Newton pulled it out, but like big time all night long. I was like, maybe he was, but you beat the Jets by a last-second field goal. I don't know. Yeah. I was assuming the quarterback couldn't have played that great for that situation, but maybe he played pretty well. I just thought it was a funny tweet. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, before we close off here, do you want to look at next week real quick here and see?
Yeah, let's look at next week. Week 10.
I think we start off with a good game. Colts at Titans.
Yes, we do. I think that'll be an excellent game.
Now, have they played yet? Remind me.
They have not played yet. I don't believe so. Yeah.
So this game will be for the division lead.
Yes, it will.
If the Colts can win, they'll both be 6-3. Yes, 6-3, and they'll have beaten them. So yeah, I mean that's a good one to start off with there.
Yeah, I think it's at Tennessee, which obviously in this COVID world this year doesn't really mean a whole lot, but you still got to travel, I guess, if you're the road team. But the Colts still have a pretty good defense, even though they lost Sunday. I think they still have a pretty good defense. I think Tennessee, who knows about Tennessee? I mean, they lost a couple games in a row. They came back last week and won. It should be a good football game, either way. And then you have another game that's for the division lead, the Eagles at the Giants. I mean, two teams that are pretty poor record-wise, but it's a game if the Giants can win, they'll be tied for the lead in the Eastern Division.
Will they?
Yeah, the Giants are 2-7, the Eagles are
4-1.
Yeah, technically they won't be tied because Eagles have
they'll be tied in your mind.
In my mind, they'll be tied. They'll have the same amount of wins.
That half a game, basically. The tie helped them.
Right.
But yeah.
In my mind, they'll be tied. Yes, thank you, Nathan.
Okay, so you got that. Let's see here if there are any other games that stand out.
Ravens at the Patriots.
That's the Sunday night game. Yeah.
Could be the final nail in the coffin. If the Patriots go 3-6, I think we can say they're definitely done.
Yeah, we'll see if Belichick can come up with a way to stop Lamar Jackson.
For some reason, just looking at this on the surface, the way the Patriots have been playing last couple weeks, you think the Ravens should kill him, but I find it very likely that Belichick comes up with a way to stop Lamar Jackson. I don't know.
Could be.
Maybe he doesn't have the talent he has anymore, but if there's anybody that can come up with a game plan to stop somebody, it's probably Belichick.
Well, here's an interesting game for you.
And Cam Newton could always go off. I still think he has the ability just to go off at any time and throw like 4 touchdowns for some reason.
What do you think about the L.A. Chargers at Miami? I mean, Miami surprised everybody with their big win over Arizona Sunday. The Chargers, even though they lost Sunday, the Chargers are a pretty solid football team.
Well, I mean, that was the 1 second left, last play of the game. They threw that fade, which was called a touchdown, but it turns out he dropped it. So they were right there. Yeah, I mean, Miami's interesting. If they can win, they'll be 6-3.
Right.
You've got the Bills at the Cardinals. If the Bills lose, they'll be 7-3. So that division is up for grabs too. Really, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa looked better than he did the first week. Right. I'm still obviously not sold on the guy. It's basically played 2 games, but he looked better than he did the first week. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. I mean.
Well, I still think they're living. I mean, their defense has played out of their minds the last 2 weeks. Yeah. I still think they made a mistake going away from Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I agree.
But we'll see. Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically they're 2-0 since they went away from him.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Bills at the Cardinals will be a good game. I mean, the Cardinals really can't afford to lose another game. No. I mean,
Cardinals are like even when they're playing well, they just don't seem like they're. To use your quote, they don't sound like they're for real.
Right.
No, they don't. You're right.
And I mean it as I don't think they're competing for the division for real.
Yeah, and that's what I took it to mean the same thing. And they're in that wild card mix, So yeah, and then I mean, Buccaneers-Panthers games has just become more interesting. I mean, I know McCaffrey did something to his shoulder, I guess. And
again?
Yeah. He had the.
Well, he played last week.
But now he's hurt
his
again.
shoulder. It's a different injury than his ankle. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if his status right now, but see how the Buccaneers bounce back at Carolina. It's one of those where if they come out and handle Carolina and they're 7-3, okay, you kind of like Saints was a bump in the road, but if they lose, they're 6-4 now. You're like, well, are the Buccaneers for real? And that
are they going to win the division? Or do they have a shot at the division in the playoffs?
Yeah, right. I mean, 6-4 puts you right there in that little. On the bubble,
How about the Raiders? I mean, that was a team that you picked in our preseason to go to the playoffs. They're 5-3, a very quiet 5-3.
Very quiet 5-3. And, I didn't include Derek Carr in the list of quarterbacks that were good. Like, I think he's essentially worthless. He's not in that top tier. But if you look, I mean, don't buy the guy. But if you look at the stats, like QB rating, passer rating, he's near the top of the league. Like he doesn't turn the ball over. He hasn't this year. So I think the quarterback stat gurus will tell you he's having a really good year. Now I don't think he can win big games and all that, but
you're not long on that.
Yeah, you could do worse than David Carr or Derek Carr.
Well, they play the Broncos at home this week, right? Yeah. So let's say they beat the Broncos. Now they're 6-3.
They probably will.
The Chiefs are on bye, so that would put them 2 games behind the Chiefs. They've already beaten the Chiefs once. Yeah. Okay, if they could beat the Chiefs again, they're 1 game behind, and then all it takes is one more Chief loss. So I wouldn't count the Raiders out. I don't think they're going to do it, but they seem to be. John Gruden has done something with this team over the last 3 years, and I think they're, to use our little term, I think they're for real.
So you're not sure if they can do it, meaning win the division, but you think that they're very legitimate playoff.
Yes, I
think
do.
they're going to get in.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I do too. And they may make some noise in the playoffs. I mean, they got some really solid players.
If they were to allow complete or 100% fans in the playoffs, can you imagine they'd have to win the division, I guess, but can you imagine a home Raiders game in the new stadium? Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and look, if they get in the playoffs as a wild card, and they played one of these division winners like Miami or Buffalo or Tennessee or Indianapolis, they could easily win that game.
Sure they could. Sure they could. Yeah. Sure they could. That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
All right, so before I think we want to finish on some college football, but I think we want to hit fantasy real quick. We kind of gave last week our fantasy midseason preview here. I'm officially done. I'm 0-9 now.
Are you tanking now?
No, I'm not tanking, but you can cross me off. Let's put it that way. Playing out the string here, playing for pride, as they like to say.
I hope you win a game. I do feel bad.
I know. I don't see how that happened, but
you're going to win a game. You score a lot of points every now and then.
Look, we've established I had the last pick in the draft. That's what did me in. I either score like 40 points, which is never going to win you a game, or I score 120, but the guy I'm playing scores 140.
That's why you'll win one, though. If you consistently scored 40 to 60, you probably might not win a game, but you'll run into one of those weeks where you play a guy that doesn't score that much.
I'm done.
I'm loading our fantasy thing right now.
You guys had another big win, and you're right there in the thick of it.
Yes, we are. If you look at the standings, America's old linebacker is 5-4, tied for third in our Eastern Division. Yeah. The founding fathers, though, I mean, you guys. Let me pull up your.
Founding fathers would not be proud.
No, the founding fathers would not be proud.
They would have no idea what you're talking about. First of all,
no, they wouldn't. Yeah.
Football, fantasy football.
Oh boy. Let me see if I can pull up your schedule here. Well, week 5, for example. I mean, you guys lost. Well, last week you lost to Mike Get Nervous by almost 100 points. So. Anyway, that's where I was at. I was trying to pull up your schedule.
Speaking of fantasy performers, Dalvin Cook scored another
he had 200 yards and 2 touchdowns again.
I thought I heard that he's the touchdown leader this season. Is that correct?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, that was the guy I remember at the start of the season. I thought I would stay away from drafting him if I
probably would have too, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a chance if we had later picks, but that was interesting.
Well, here's what I was trying to find. In week 3, your team scored 125.64 points. Your opponent scored 141. Right. In week 4, you scored 105, and your opponent scored 113. Yep. You scored 100 in week 6, and your opponent scored 115. You scored 134 in week 7, and your opponent scored 147. I mean, so those are easily weeks you could have won. I mean, it just didn't work out.
You lost 8, 9 in a row. Who's to say you don't win the next 5 in a row?
That's right.
Yeah. Not that you'll make the playoffs, but.
And I have to give it to you guys. The Hill-Kelsey combo is a great pick.
Yes, it is.
Because you and I guess everybody knew this, but you acted on it. The Chiefs' offense is powerful. Mahomes is going to be throwing it all over. Yeah. Those are his 2 guys. And every week you just see Hill running around, catching touchdowns. Yeah, Kelsey just hanging out in the middle of the field, 13 catches or whatever.
Kelsey racks up the catches in the yards. Hill's just explosive. Yeah. And Hill will do anything to get in the end zone. We've talked about before. If he gets when the ball gets in his hands, he's a one mindset, just get in the end zone. And Kelsey, forget about the end zone sometimes with him.
And got to be in the end zone.
Like you said, he has to be in the end zone to score a touchdown.
Those 2, and then Deshaun Watson, who, the Texans are 2-7, but And a lot of times early in the game he'll look bad, but you check at the end of the game, it's like 22, 23 fantasy points.
That's it. Every game, the first half you're thinking, oh no, what a bad quarterback pick. Every week, oh, we probably should have picked up. Then at the end of the game, you look at it, like you said, he ends up with 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. Like he's a solid fantasy quarterback.
And the one week you needed Phil Rivers, he scores like 23, 24 points. And the other weeks he's like 4, 3, 7.
Because he knows his place. You know, I mean, it's placism.
Yeah, so we'll
but this week Tyreek Hill and Kelsey are on bye, so we could be in trouble this week.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
So we'll keep following your guys' the fight to the finish.
It'll be interesting. I mean, fantasy football's. The funny thing about fantasy football, and I'd love to hear from our listeners out there. Tweet us at PressBoxPod. But the funny thing about it is, every week when you have a bad week, you think, I'm not going to do this again. This is ridiculous. But there's something about it that it makes watching the games more interesting. You know what I mean? It's like you're looking at, come on, throw it to Kelsey. He threw it to Pringle. It's like, it just makes you more.
It's a real guy, by the way.
Yeah, it is, by the way. There is a real guy on the Chiefs team, by the way.
Yeah, and especially you guys who we just said are fighting for playoff spot. Even at 0-8, I find myself like, hand it to Peterson.
Exactly.
Like you still want to win every week.
And there's games that you're now invested in that you wouldn't typically be. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I have to say I don't think I ever think to myself like, oh, I never want to play again. I just think like fantasy's ridiculous, like But then I'm investing in the next week. But I never really think like, oh, I'm never gonna play again.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying it's kind of a.
I know you've said that before.
I have said that before.
You both said that before.
But it is a lot of fun. So we'll give our update. We'll give another update on that next week. There may be some trades coming up between some of the teams represented in this podcast organization, but we'll mention that later.
Yeah.
But let's close by talking about the big college game of the week. Notre Dame and Clemson. Clemson traveled to South Bend to play the Irish. The number 1 Clemson Tigers, number 4 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The Notre Dame Clemson game, the ratings of that college football game were better than any of the NBA final rating games, which I'll just leave that out there as a point of reference. But I have to say, as a Notre Dame alum, I was a little bit shocked at the outcome. I thought Notre Dame had a chance to win. I didn't think they were explosive enough to beat Clemson. I remember telling you in the first half, the Irish were ahead 23-10. Clemson came back and tied it. I thought, this is it. They're going to get beat. But, they hung in there, and they drove 91 yards with 1:29 left to tie the game and then won it in double overtime. So, I think Notre Dame is for real. I think they've got some tremendous talent. I think if their receivers can continue to step up, the only real go-to guy they have is their tight end right now, the guy they call Baby Gronk, the freshman tight end. But I think they've got a great chance. The key for Notre Dame is going to be this weekend. They got to go to Boston College. Boston College is 5-3. They're not a pushover. We'll see what kind of effort Notre Dame puts forward this weekend against Boston College.
Yeah. I think we were talking about something off air, maybe I said this, that it feels like a game to me in years past Notre Dame probably would have lost. Like,
right.
They start out hot and then they play a traditional powerhouse and they lose, But even though we all know Lawrence did play, but just winning that game really showed me that. Again, I'll use the term there for real.
Right.
I think they're going to the playoffs. I think that they still have to, I guess they still have to prove that they can beat an Alabama in the playoffs or somebody like that. But they answered a lot of questions in that game. I think for me,
Yeah, they did. I mean, they did. I mean, they played really well. I mean, they held Travis Etienne, the Clemson senior running back, who's I think the leading rusher of all time in the ACC. They held him to 60 or 70 yards, I think. Which is pretty good. Yeah. Now, they did give up a lot of passing yards, but it's kind of like the Bill Belichick game plan from Super Bowl 25. We're going to stop Thurman Thomas, or we're going to let Thurman Thomas get his yards, but we're going to stop the passing game. You pick one or the other, and you force a team to beat you with the one you don't pick. Yeah. And that's what the Notre Dame did, and they were able to come through. So,
How would you compare them to the 2012 team right now?
Oh, way better than 2012. Okay. Yeah, way better. Much more explosive on offense. Probably not quite as good on defense. If you compared them to 2 years ago, the team that went to the playoffs in 2018, I think they're even better than that team. I think Ian Book's a better quarterback. I don't think they have as good a receivers as they had 2 years ago, which is going to be the key to Notre Dame's continued improvement in this season is how those receivers develop, because they've got a great running game. They've got a pretty solid quarterback who proved himself Saturday night, and they got a really good defense. And the key is going to be, can you pass the ball down the field when you need to? Yeah. So we'll see.
I agree with both of you. Even though Trevor Lawrence wasn't playing, even without him, that's a game you expect them to typically lose.
Yeah.
So you have to give it to them the fact that they won it, with or without Trevor Lawrence.
And listen to me. Trevor Lawrence is a great quarterback. But this kid who played in his place as freshman, he's a really good quarterback. He was the #1 recruit out of high school. He threw for 469 yards Saturday. He throws some rocket passes. He's a good quarterback.
And then how many points did Notre Dame scored?
47 at the
47. And like I mentioned to you too, Lawrence shouldn't affect their defense. They
Right.
didn't put up 47 points on their defense.
Right.
Unless you want to say, I guess the only way you could say maybe the effect is if the offense can't stay on the field as long, the defense maybe gets tired out quicker. I don't know. But it sounds like the offense was okay moving the ball.
They were.
So, and then what you say they still had to prove they can beat a team like Alabama in the playoffs. Well, I think beating Clemson.
I know. I guess I meant like the SEC.
I know, but I still think Clemson is the one exception. I think outside the SEC, where if you beat Clemson, that's the equivalent of beating an Alabama or an SEC team. Would you agree with that? Clemson could very well be in the SEC.
I would agree with that, but to go along with Joseph's point, this game was at home. Yeah. Okay, I want to see them beat a Clemson or an Alabama, or you pick your team in Ohio State in the playoffs on a neutral site in the semifinals.
Big stage, yeah. And then also, then you add back in the Trevor Lawrence thing too, because that makes some of it.
It does. So we think everything goes how it should. They'll play again in an ACC championship game.
They should.
I mean, do you think if Notre Dame can take care of business in the rest of the regular season during the playoffs, we're going to lose this?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think they've locked up the playoffs. And I think
they are.
I think they are. Yeah, I think they are. I mean, if they go undefeated and lose to Clemson in a close game, I think Clemson and Notre Dame are both in the playoffs.
Assuming Clemson only has one loss at that point.
Right.
If Clemson loses 2 more games and then Notre Dame loses them.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, right. I agree with that.
What do you think then? Let's say Clemson loses 1 or 2 more games, but then they beat Notre Dame, the ACC championship. Does Notre Dame get in the playoffs?
I think especially 2 losses, you don't get in. I don't know.
Notre Dame have 1 loss.
Nathan's point is saying if Notre Dame gets to the ACC championship game undefeated, but Clemson loses another game, and now Clemson has 2 losses and beats Notre Dame, I think that tarnishes Notre Dame a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, without a doubt.
In that case, neither of them get in probably.
Right, probably not. Yeah, that's right.
They both have 2 losses.
And you think that if Clemson and Notre Dame both have 1 loss in the season,
I don't think anybody with 2 losses is getting in this year. I just don't see that.
I don't either. No, I don't think so, because I think you've got Alabama, Florida's undefeated, Texas A&M I think still undefeated. Ohio State, even though they've only played 2 games, they're going to put them in there if they're undefeated.
How many are they going to end up playing? The same amount as everybody else?
8. No, just 8.
There's 8. Yeah. That's ridiculous. You might have an undefeated Ohio State team with 8 games.
Yeah. 9 if they win the Big Ten championship.
Compared to how many for Notre Dame and Clemson? And
12 or 13. Yeah.
How can you?
I don't know.
That's a whole other conversation. Yeah. I don't know.
They still play Michigan this year? They do, right?
They'll play Michigan. Yeah.
Michigan's
they'll kill Michigan. Yeah.
And let's point out, Coastal Carolina Chanticleer 7-0, ranked number 15.
7-0.
Yes, we want to shout out to our friend of the podcast, Josh Caraway, the special teams analyst / coordinator for Coastal Carolina, and they are 7-0 and ranked 15th.
And it's their season's going to come down to their last game against the now 7-0 22nd ranked Liberty University.
Yes, it is.
So that's going to be quite the season ending for them.
Yes, it is.
From this point to that ending game, though, you think they got?
I don't have the schedule up, but I can click on it here. Let me see. I think they should be favored to win all those.
Yeah.
How about if Notre Dame doesn't get into playoffs, they'll probably go to the Orange Bowl, which the runner-up of the ACC goes to. Notre Dame and Coastal Carolina in the Orange Bowl.
They've
Coastal Carolina's in the ACC.
No, I'm just saying.
No. You mean I see Notre Dame would be the runner-up in the ACC.
This weekend they're at Troy.
They'll win that game.
They host Appalachian State.
That's gonna be tough.
And then they're at Texas State before Liberty.
Yeah,
I think State Armadillos.
Yeah, the Armadillos.
Paul Blake.
Paul Blake. Yeah.
Arm of the Armadillos.
The Armadillos.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen to our movie podcast, sports movie podcast.
That's exactly right. Go back to episode 56.
To learn about Paul Blake.
I'm assuming at the time of that movie there was no Texas State, obviously. They came out.
Not like that with this color. They couldn't have used.
Was there even a name though? Texas State.
I think it was a Texas State.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Because I don't think you can even. You can't make a.
Maybe not.
You can't make a team called Notre Dame right now, but use different colors. In the logo,
I guess
right?
not. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. So we we're glad we're able to recap Week 9. We'll look to do that a little more often here. We're right in the midst of football season, which is football has it all to themselves now. The NBA's done, baseball's done. You got college football, but this is really in the NFL stretch here down the rest of the year.
Yep, and we got Thanksgiving coming up, which will be some good games on that day. We're getting into the sweet spot of the NFL and down to the wire now.
Yeah. As we always say before we sign off, interact with us on Twitter at PressBoxPod. We'll tweet out the links to the episodes when they come out. We always like to get interactive as well in there with poll questions, and give us your thoughts on Week 9, Week 10. After each week, we'll look to recap and kind of give some guidance as to what's coming up. But that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening to the PressBox Podcast.